Though Natasha had never met Scarlet, she had heard of her reputation. Scarlet was known as the cold and ruthless goddess of war who killed without hesitation. Ever since she became a prominent figure, she worked independently. She never yielded to anyone, not even the royal family. However, Scarlet was like a well-behaved girl in front of Dustin. Not only that, she also seemed nervous and fearful. It was as if she was afraid of upsetting him. It was the complete opposite of her usual personality. As a woman, Natasha understood that Scarlet had developed deep feelings for Dustin and had come to rely on him. For someone as cold and detached as Scarlet, once they fell in love, they tended to become entangled and found it hard to let go. That was why Natasha was worried that if Dustin were to hurt Scarlet, she might go insane. Scarlet is like a sister to me. She still sees me through the lens of our childhood experiences. It would be hard to change that perspective in the short term, but I believe that time will eventually help her see reality. Dustin replied without much thought. Their positions in life had changed. It was only natural for them to grow apart over time. I hope so. Natasha nodded in contemplation. Dustin, are you done talking to her? Just then, they heard Scarlet calling out from afar. She had walked out of the guest lounge as she had been waiting for some time and grew concerned. What's wrong? Dustin asked. I'm hungry, Scarlet said as she rubbed her belly. Since Ms. Spanner is hungry, let's get something to eat. It just so happens that a new restaurant has opened up in Millsburg. Let's try it out together, Natasha suggested with a smile. All right, then let's go. Dustin nodded. He brought them into the car and drove them to the restaurant. Right as they left Zephyr Lodge, two MPVs followed them discreetly. Half an hour later, two luxury cars slowly pulled up in front of Aroma. The doors opened, and Dustin and his group got off one after the other. Aroma was a newly opened restaurant. It was known for its excellent ambience, service, and food. The restaurant had garnered favorable reviews. There were many high-ranking officials and prominent figures who frequented the place. They had made a prior reservation. Thus, a few senior waitresses promptly led Dustin and his group to the second floor. On the second floor was the VIP area. Regular VIP patrons sat in the main hall, with decorative screens placed between tables. Meanwhile, higher-tiered VIPs had private rooms. They enjoyed a better experience in terms of environment and services. Ms. Hammond, this way, please. A senior waitress dressed in a white shirt smiled as she led the group. She brought them to the entrance of a private room named Celestial Room 3. She opened the door and was about to walk in when a woman dressed in a black professional suit abruptly stood in their way. A nameplate adorned her chest, bearing the title Assistant Manager. Hold on, this room is already occupied. Get the guests another room, the assistant manager, Sue Fern, said. Ms. Sue, you must have been mistaken. These guests have made a prior booking for Celestial Room 3. The waitress in white was perplexed. There's been a change in plans. A few prominent figures are coming and have specifically requested Celestial Room 3. We must vacate it immediately. Sue ordered coldly. Ms. Sue, this doesn't seem right. The guests have already made a reservation. How are we supposed to explain it to them when we switch rooms at the last minute? The waitress in white was hesitant. Besides, we only have 4 Celestial rooms, and the other 3 are already occupied. There are no more rooms we can switch to. The Celestial rooms are all occupied. But we still have the Terra rooms. It doesn't matter what room it is. Just get them another room. What's with all the nonsense? Sue was getting impatient. Although she had lowered her voice to a whisper, Dustin could hear her clearly. Ms. Sue, the standards between the Celestial rooms and Terra rooms are extremely different. I don't think they will agree, the waitress in white said weakly. Who would agree to such a rude request? They had paid for a Celestial room, but were offered a Terra room instead. It was a significant downgrade in terms of treatment and ambience. You useless trash. Let me talk to them. Sue glared at her before approaching Dustin and his group. With a fake smile, she said, Dear guests, our staff has made a mistake. Celestial Room 3 is currently not available. Please move to another area. We have several Terra rooms available for your selection. We already made a reservation for this room half an hour ago. Isn't it too late to tell us it is unavailable? Dustin said impassively. If it had been a genuine issue, he would have been understanding. But it was apparent that they were being mistreated. Everyone was there to dine and spend money. So why should they be given the short end of the stick? Our establishment has its rules, sir. I hope you won't make things difficult for me. Sue's smile disappeared. Am I making things difficult for you? Or are you making things difficult for me? Dustin raised an eyebrow. If I'm not mistaken, you were going to give the room we reserved to someone else. Huh. Sue frowned, seemingly surprised, but she quickly regained her composure. Since you heard it all, I'll be honest with you. We have some distinguished guests visiting us today. They must be seated in the celestial room. Please be considerate. That would be best for everyone. Considerate. Dustin found it amusing. Is this the kind of service Aroma provides? Requesting us to switch rooms for no apparent reason and not even being polite about it. Are you trying to take advantage of your customers? How were they supposed to enjoy their meal when they were being forced to switch rooms for a few people? What exactly do you want? Was unhappy, sir. So are you saying you should be compensated? Fine, as long as you agree to switch rooms. I'll cover the cost of a complimentary fruit platter. That should do it, right? She looked at him in disdain. Firstly, I don't need compensation. Secondly, offering us a mere fruit platter as compensation? What do you take us for? Beggars. In a restaurant, the customer usually came first. Yet, the woman before him seemed to ignore that completely. You better not be difficult, sir. We have rules in this restaurant. If you're unhappy, you're always welcome to leave. Sue was annoyed. Their restaurant was booming. Losing a few morally questionable customers wouldn't matter in the slightest. Oh, you're going to kick us out after just a few words from us. Aroma seems to think highly of itself. Dustin pushed Sue aside as he spoke and walked straight into Celestial Room 3. Taking a seat, he said coldly, I'm dining in here today. Let's see who can remove me. Why, you're being absolutely unreasonable. Sue was exasperated. Aroma doesn't welcome you. I'm warning you. Leave this place immediately before I call for security. Sure, call them. Get them here. I'd like to see how you plan to continue your business after this situation escalates. Dustin calmly poured himself a cup of tea. You scoundrel! You have no shame. Get out. Get out of here immediately. Sue flew into a rage and rushed toward Dustin. She was ready to strike him. Before Sue could touch him, Natasha slapped her hard across the face. The slap left her dazed and disoriented. She rubbed her stinging cheek, unable to react for a moment. How dare someone like you make a scene here? Natasha's expression was cold. She looked intimidating, exuding a queen-like temperament. You! How dare you hit me? Sue glared at Natasha in disbelief. Her boyfriend was the boss of Aroma. He wasn't only rich and influential, he was also well-connected with high-ranking officials and prominent figures. Everyone held her in high regard in Aroma. How dare this woman hit her? How horrible! So what if I hit you? You deserve more than a slap, you arrogant bitch. Natasha cursed. Just you wait. I'll make you pay. Sue spat out, turning to seek assistance. However, Scarlett suddenly made a move. She grabbed Sue by the throat and lifted her off the ground. In a serious tone, she asked, Dustin, should I kill her? Ooh, Sue couldn't breathe. As her feet dangled in the air, her face turned red. A sense of impending doom spread through her. She never expected the silent white-haired woman to be that strong. She was able to lift her up effortlessly with just one hand. She had no doubt that if the woman exerts some force into it, her neck would snap. No need. Just 2 slaps as a lesson will do, Dustin said. Okay. Scarlett nodded and delivered 2 hard slaps. The slaps left Sue dazed and disoriented. Her teeth were knocked out, and her nose was bleeding. After hitting her, Scarlett threw her out the door like a piece of trash. Sue coughed violently, and her face was pale and swollen. It took her a while to recover. You guys are too much. I will not let you get away with this. Sue grimaced and made her way downstairs in a rush. However, as soon as she reached the foot of the staircase, she collided with a group of people. Tumbling to the ground, she let out cries of pain. Who dared? Sue was about to unleash a torrent of curses when she saw who it was and froze. She instantly smiled sweetly. Ms. Nicholson, Madam Franklin, you're here. It was none other than the distinguished guests she had mentioned. Leading the group was Dahlia, with Florence, Julie, and Victoria next to her. What the hell? Are you blind? Did you not see us come in? You dirtied my newly bought designer shoes. What bad luck. Florence was furious when she noticed the shoe print on her new shoes. I'm sorry, Madam Franklin. I didn't do it on purpose. Let me wipe that off for you. Sue bowed and apologized. She knelt on the ground and used her sleeve to clean Florence's shoes spotlessly. Her humble demeanor was a stark contrast to how she had acted toward Dustin. That's enough. Keep your distance. Florence was annoyed. Sue, what happened to your face? Did someone hit you? Julie suddenly asked. Ms. Amberson, I just encountered a few ruffians who are trying to forcibly occupy Celestial Room 3 that I had prepared for your group. I tried to argue, but they resorted to violence instead. They're despicable, Sue said indignantly. What? Someone dared steal our room? The nerve! Didn't you tell them who we were? Florence was displeased. They were of a different status now. Even aristocrats treated them with respect. Madam Franklin, I told them you were distinguished guests and Aroma as supreme VIPs. And yet, they completely disregarded it. They even threatened to beat up anyone who dared take their seats. Sue fanned the flames. If her distinguished guests were willing to stand up for her, then those people in Celestial Room 3 would be in deep trouble. That's outrageous. They'd beat us up. I'm going to see who this crazy person is. Florence's anger flared. Lead the way. I need to teach these ignorant people a lesson, too. Julie was also indignant. Right away. Please follow me. Sue nodded and brought the group of people to Celestial Room 3. Madam Franklin, they're inside. Irritated, Florence kicked the door open without a single word. She walked inside haughtily and demanded, Who was it that wanted to take our room? Stand up if you dare. It was me. Dustin got up from his seat slowly and turned to face them. When he saw Florence and her group, he was slightly taken aback. What a small world. Another one. Natasha frowned when she noticed Dahlia. She hadn't even finished dealing with Scarlet. And now Dahlia had joined the scene. It felt like she was being played by some cosmic joke. Dustin, it's you. Florence's expression darkened after she took a good look at the person before her. Why are you here? You're not tailing us, are you? Don't overthink it. We're just here to have a meal. Dustin replied impassively. A meal? HMPH. Who knows if you're telling the truth? Florence was doubtful. You must have heard about our newfound wealth and planned this coincidental meeting. I've encountered plenty of people like you. You're trying to find an opportunity to gain favor with us. That's right. Julie chimed in haughtily. Reese, I'm warning you to keep your distance. Our social status puts us way out of your league. Your social status doesn't concern me. If there's nothing else, please leave. Don't disrupt our meal. Dustin drove them out. Theft. This is Madam Franklin's room. You're the ones occupying it. Sue shouted cowardly. Did you hear that? We reserved this room. You should be leaving instead. Florence's expression was one of arrogance. I'm ordering you to get out of my sight right now. She shouted. Get out right now. Julie glared at them. First of all, I reserved this room first. We're not occupying it by force. Also, who the hell do you think you are to order me around? Dustin asked coldly. Since they had broken all ties, there was no need to show them respect. You impudent bastard. Florence glared at Dustin and yelled, Reese, how dare you talk to me that way? Do you know I can have all of you thrown into prison with a single command? With the backing of the Mosey family, they could act however they liked. No one would dare stand in their way. Really, I don't believe you. Dustin shook his head. Florence was about to launch into a tirade when Dahlia raised her hand to stop her. She looked at Dustin and calmly said, Dustin, I need to meet an important guest here today. I hope you will let us have the room. As compensation, I'll cover the expenses of your meal. Before Dustin could respond, Natasha stood up. With a smile, she interjected, Ms. Nicholson is indeed generous. Unfortunately, we don't need your compensation. Please, leave. Dahlia frowned and locked her gaze on Natasha. She retorted icily, Ms. Hammond, was it? Please get this straight. You're the ones intruding into our reserved room. I've already politely asked you to leave. Please don't push your luck. Natasha covered her mouth and chuckled lightly. Is me Nicholson threatening me? Then her expression suddenly turned cold, and if I choose not to comply. Dahlia's expression grew even colder as she stared silently at Natasha. Natasha, unwilling to show any weakness, matched her gaze. The intensity of their confrontation sent shivers down the spines of those present. In an instant, the atmosphere became tense.